Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Maya, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the Disney College Program. This video is going to be split up into multiple parts, and you can look into the description below if you want to see timestamps for when I talk about each particular part. I'm going to be talking about my application process, where I go into depth about the actually applying, about my web-based interview, about my phone-based interview, getting accepted, stuff like that. And then I'm also going to be talking about my character audition and going in depth about that, about what I wore, how it went, how many people were there, and stuff like that. So stay tuned. So, for those of you who don't know, the Disney College Program is a semester-long paid internship where you can either work at Walt Disney World or Disneyland, and you work there for a semester, or you can extend and stay there longer, and you just get all these marketing opportunities where you can meet people who are higher up in the industry, and it can really build your resume. Now, I wanted to apply for the fall program. They also have a Fall Advantage program where you work during the summer as well, but I wanted to do fall. And they said that applications would drop around late January, early February, and they actually dropped on January 23rd, which is the day that I applied. Now basically how the application works is you just go on the website and they give you the whole sheet where you fill out your name, what school you go to, race, age, stuff like that. And then you can give all of your experience, and then you rate the roles that you want from high interest to low interest. You can go on the website to see all of the roles. They include merchandising, quick service food and beverage, attractions, Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, character attendant. There's a billion roles. Also, I'm recording this in my dorm, and my sister just got home.
Came back from dance class, so
if you hear that in the background, that's what that is. So in almost all of the application videos I watched before I applied, everyone said they heard back in around 30 minutes to a few hours. So those few hours after I applied were me waiting and waiting and waiting and refreshing my email over and over again. A few hours after I applied, I was put in progress, and I'll explain to you what that means. So let me start off by saying it is not the end of the world. People will tell you that it is not good, but it's okay. It just means that Disney hasn't looked at your application yet, but that you were still in consideration. So I was in progress until February 3rd. So what happened on February 3rd was I got an email from Disney, and I'm freaking out, I'm very excited, and I open it and it's just a thank you for applying email. So I texted my friend Kristen and I'm like, Disney just got my hopes up so hard, but it was just a thank you for applying email. And she's like, well, what's your submission progress? So I go and check it, and it is no longer saying in progress, it is now saying action required. Basically what action required means is that Disney has sent you something to fill out or respond to, and they're waiting for you to do that. So I, of course, start freaking out because I haven't gotten an email yet, but my submission thing says action required. So I start freaking out because my submission status says action required, but I haven't gotten an email yet. So of course, I'm back to refreshing my email like a crazy person. Then I think it took about 10 or 15 minutes since I checked. I don't know how long it said action required, but I finally got an email, and it was for my web-based interview. So the web-based interview is basically where Disney will ask you a question, ask you about your interest, ask you a whole bunch of questions, and they'll have a whole bunch of dots, and you can choose low interest to high interest, or very comfortable to not comfortable, questions like that. A lot of them are work-related, or a lot of them are about moving down to Florida. They ranged all over the place. A quick tip for the web-based interview, don't put anything in between, okay? If it's 10 or 5, don't go anywhere near 5. Keep it at 1 or 10. This is a way for Disney to weed out people who aren't as confident in their answers. So make sure you're very confident in the answers that you choose. They're usually pretty easy to tell what the... It's usually pretty Oh my god. It's usually pretty easy to tell which one is the right answer. So my web-based interview took about 30 minutes, I think. And then after I finished it, when I got to the end, it said, you seem like you'd be a good applicant for the Disney College Program, so it is now time to schedule your phone interview. So I had my web-based interview on February 3rd, and I had to schedule my phone interview on February 3rd as well. So I had been in progress for a very long time at this point, so I was ready to get this phone interview over with. I scheduled it for February 7th. I scheduled it to be at 12:15, and for the Disney College program, that means they can call you 15 minutes before or 15 minutes after. So be ready before 12 and be ready for it to happen between 12 and 12:30. So I sat down and was ready to go at around 11:30, and my phone interview didn't start till around 12:15. So that was about 45 minutes of waiting and listening to Disney motivational music and practicing my answers. So there are a few websites out there that tell you what interview questions they had. So I wrote all of those down and wrote down what answers I thought I would have, which resulted in 11 pages of Disney notes. I basically just wrote down what the question was and wrote down what I think the best answer would be and practiced them like crazy. My original plan was to keep my laptop with me during the phone interview so that I could look at my answers whenever she asked a question that I recognized. By the time she called, I ended up ditching this because all of my answers sounded like I was reading them off of a computer, which I was, and it didn't sound natural and it didn't sound genuine. So I definitely recommend you practice what questions you think you're gonna have, but don't rely on them because like what I did, I ended up ditching it and I got in. So just try and be confident in your answers and try to have your personality show. If you're reading off and sound like you're reading from a script, they're not gonna wanna hire you. So most people say when you have a short interview that it's bad. Most interviews say they're gonna last around 20 to 30 minutes or maybe even longer. My interview was 16 minutes long. I kind of expected this because I don't have a lot of experience, and that's usually what they ask you a lot of questions about, how you can apply your experience to be helpful for the company. Like if you work in merchandise, they'll ask you a lot of questions about merchandise and stuff like that. But mine only lasted 16 minutes, and once it ended, I was very, very nervous about that. Also, don't be surprised about some of the questions they ask you. If you put low interest for a job, they'll still probably ask you a question for it if you're being considered for it. I don't have any merchandising experience, but I got asked a lot of questions about merchandise, and it's also the role I got accepted for. So after your phone interview ends, that is when the real waiting begins. Some people will hear back as quickly as a few days after their interview. For some people, it literally takes to the last day that they say it can be, which for me, I think was April 14th. Acceptances hadn't started going out yet by the time I had my phone interview, so I was just waiting for that first acceptance. I joined a lot of the Facebook groups so that I could stay updated and meet people, and I got to see when the first acceptance wave came out, which was February 10th, 3 days after my phone interview. For the next month, it was just waiting and seeing more people and more people getting accepted, seeing people get NLIC'd, which means no longer in consideration if you wanted to know. Also people who are still in submission. Oh my god, I've been saying I've been in, after my phone interview I was put in progress, and it's kind of like the same thing for submission, but it's after your phone interview. It's the same thing as you're being considered, but you're not in yet. I had planned to go to my character audition on March 10th, and I just wanted to know before my character audition. I wouldn't have to put all my weight on getting that. I could actually calm down during the audition and know that even if I didn't get anything in entertainment, I would still have a job with Disney. And then on March 8th, 2 days before my character audition, I got the email. It was 12:39 p.m. and I was in the middle of doing my Spanish homework, and I see that little congratulations email come up at the top of my interview, and I burst out bawling. My sister and my friends were at lunch, my parents were at work, no one could answer their phone, but I was just sobbing. I was so happy to have gotten in after a month of waiting and waiting. So I got accepted for merchandising, which I don't actually have any experience for that particular job, which was very surprising to me. I have experience to work in all the other jobs, not so much merchandise, but I'm not questioning the process. They thought I'd be good for that job for some reason or other, so I just let it happen. So now we're going to talk about my character audition, which as I said was on March 10th, and it was in Atlanta, Georgia. I go to college in Greensboro, and my parents live in Raleigh. So it's from Raleigh about a 6-hour drive, from Greensboro about a 5-hour drive, but it was the closest one to us. So we drove out to Atlanta, stayed in a hotel, and the audition said that it started at 10:30 and not to be there more than an hour early. So me and my friend Bronwyn got there at 9:30. When I looked at the list of all of the other auditions, like a New York one, a California one, actually I don't think there was one in California, a New York one and an Orlando one, I didn't think Georgia was going to be one of the more popular auditions, but I was very wrong in this case. We showed up there at 9:30 and they had already put 2 groups in there to start learning the dance, and I was number 157. So pro tip here would be, even though they say not to get there an hour early, maybe get there a little bit more than an hour early, because a lot of other people did and they ended up just starting the audition early for them. So a lot of questions I know people are going to ask is, what do you wear to the character audition? And here's a picture of what I wore. One of the main things to keep in mind is to wear something that you can move in, something that you can breathe in. So something that is athletic is probably the best choice, and something that shows off your body. Since for a character, that's kind of important. They want to see how your body moves and how your body looks. I had a lot of different feedback about makeup. I would say wear whatever makeup you want, just try not to change your facial features too much. I did an eyeliner that goes up a little bit more so that it made my eyes seem bigger. I didn't do any highlight or any contour, I just did blush. But besides that, this is the makeup I basically did. I did my same eyebrows, I did foundation, concealer, the whole thing. There were people there with no makeup on, and there were people there with false eyelashes and lipstick on. So don't worry too much about the makeup aspect of it, just do whatever you feel comfortable in. Shoe-wise, it says online not to wear character shoes, so make sure you don't do that. It scuffs up the floors and it's bad. There was someone at my audition that wore character shoes, and it was not cute. Don't wear character shoes if it says not to wear character shoes. I suggest you wear sneakers. There were people with socks on, there were people that were barefoot, or wear jazz shoes. Jazz shoes would definitely be what I recommend the most, because they're the easiest to move in. Whenever I dance in sneakers, I always get really bad foot cramps, but again, dance in whatever you're most comfortable in. So like I said, me and Bronwyn showed up at 9:30, and when we walked in, there was 5 studios, I think, and 2 were already taken up full of people, and they directed us towards another studio to go into where we had to take our shoes off before we went in because they had new floors, sorry. So we take our shoes off, we go in there, we sit down, we start talking to people, and it's really chill. And then one of the directors comes in and she says that if you have street shoes, which is sneakers, socks, or no shoes at all, to go into another room because they didn't want to mess up these floors. So our whole audition was basically split up into people with dance shoes and people without dance shoes. And keep in mind, there was about 320 people at this audition, which is a lot more than a normal Disney audition. So my audition immediately became a little bit more intimidating because I was just with people who had dance shoes, which most likely means people with dance experience. Something about me, I'm not really a dancer. Most of my dance experience comes from musical theater and things I did when I was like 5. So I'm not the most technical dancer in the world, but I am pretty good on picking up on choreography. In my auditions, no one messed up too bad, so I would say not to be too nervous about that, but then again, I was with a lot of dancers, so I have a pretty limited perspective on the whole thing. So we waited about an hour. It was about 11:30 when our group finally got called in to learn the first dance. The first dance is really simple. It's about 2 counts of 8 of marching, skipping, jazz squares, and pivots. That's about it. It's really not hard. You learn the dance in like 5 minutes, and then they put you on one side of the wall and you walk across the floor in groups of however many people there are. I think we went down in groups of like 5 or 4. So that the casting director could see us all do it individually. So that whole process in that room literally only took 15-20 minutes maybe. It did not take long. They had us all go across the floor and do it once, and then that was it. She asked us all to sit down on the ground and listen for our numbers. So we all sat down and she starts counting off the numbers she would like to stay. So there are numbers in this room that go from 100 that go to 200. So waiting for your number to be called is very scary, especially when you're 157. My friend Bronwyn was 156, and I already knew she was going to get in because she's actually a trained dancer. So of course, I hear her number get called, and immediately I'm like, please, 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 please. It's good to know that once you get past the first cut, you will 100% be in consideration for entertainment. But you just need to get past that first cut. So of course I'm sitting there and I'm hoping and I'm hoping, and finally they call my number, which means that I made it past the first cut, which was really my main goal for this whole experience, was just to get past the main cut, which I did. So after they called out all the numbers, they asked the people who did not get called to please leave and that they would no longer be in consideration, but for the people whose numbers they were called to go back into the room that we were originally in. When you walk into this room, it's really cool because it's all people who made it past the first cut, and they clap for you and they're so excited and everyone's just so happy. It really is the most fun audition I've ever been to. Everyone is just so happy and everyone's so nice to each other. So we walk in, we sit down, we again meet some more people, and we sat there for about an hour and a half waiting for the rest of the groups to go and be cut. I also forgot to mention that after we did the first cut and we were waiting in the room for the harder dance, we had to line up around the room, and that is when they took our heights and they took our pictures. So then the directors came in and they told us that it's time to learn the harder dance, and we had our same choreographer who taught us the first dance come in, and she first, before teaching us the dance, told us what the animation was going to be. Now the animation is basically, they'll give you a situation and you have to act it out like you're playing charades with a kid. It's like if you're going to be friends with a character who doesn't have their face showing and can't speak, you really have to make your movements big. Like you're not just sewing like this, you're sewing like this and stuff like that. So the animations range all over the place. So she told us what ours was going to be, and she let us practice it with the music a few times, and which I really liked doing that because I was able to make the movements I did kind of flow with the music, which made it a lot easier and less weird. 100% you're gonna feel weird and uncomfortable when you do the animation. You're doing something crazy in front of like 200 people. It's okay, just make sure that you live in the moment and you have fun and you make your movements as big as possible. So after we did the animation a few times, it was actually time to learn the harder dance. So if you don't have any dance experience, I think you'll be fine. If you're trying to be a fur character, they don't really care if you know choreography that well. It's more about your face. That's the main thing that they're looking for. If you mess up, just keep your face at 100 and you will 100% be fine. The dance I think was about 7 or 8 counts of 8. It's pretty long and has a few hard moves in it.
Holy shit.
I'm sorry, again, I'm filming this in my dorm. Anyway, but you'll probably be fine. It's nothing too hard and it's nothing too easy, so just work really hard and you'll probably be fine. So we learned to dance for about an hour and a half. There was no clocks in the room, so I'm really just estimating on time. And then what happened was they broke us up into 2 big groups of about 100, and they put the other group into another room so they could continue practicing, and had our group line up in numerical order around the room. I heard for auditions they usually do groups of about 4 or 6, but I think because our audition was so big they did us in about groups of 8, which was really nerve-wracking because it's much harder to stand out in a group like that. You really only get seen for a few seconds and the casting director makes a big decision of whether or not you'd be good for the company. So after about 7 or 8 groups go, it was finally time for my group to go up and perform. You go up there in your 2 lines of 4, so there's 8 people, and you do the dance twice. The first time you're in the back row or the front row, and then the second time you do it you switch lines. And then after you do the dance twice, you do the animation. And then your casting director will call numbers that they wish to stay longer, and if they don't call your number, it just means they don't need to see any more of you, and it does not mean that you are no longer in consideration. It just means they've seen everything they want from you. Usually if people get asked to stay, it means they are being considered for a face character or a parade performer. If you're being considered for a face character, they'll usually have you read a monologue for the character they're considering you for, and they'll take more headshots and they'll take more measurements. And if you're being considered for parade performer, they'll have you do the dance again. So if you get asked to leave, it means you're probably being considered for a fur character, which is still very, very exciting. Well, after my whole group went, I did not get called to stay after, so it meant that I was allowed to leave. Out of my group, there was 7 very, very, very talented girls and 1 guy, and the guy got asked to stay longer. So again, I don't really know what the DCP process is like and what they're looking for, because the other girls that I was with were so talented and so beautiful, so I don't know what happened there, but we will see what happens, I guess. So they told me the latest I will hear about my character audition is April 14th, and today it is, what's today? March 20th? And today is March 20th, so I'm just waiting patiently to find out what happens. Like I said earlier, I'm so content if I don't get in because I'm already in merchandising, I already have the job, so I'm still very, very optimistic about that. But if I do get in, it'll be like the cherry on top of the cake. I'll be very, very excited if I get into entertainment. But yeah, so that was my whole process, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to subscribe to my channel, I think I'm going to be posting a lot more informative videos on this channel, and maybe a few vlogs for when I go to my program in August. I know I'm going to be doing the DCP tag at some point, the Disney tag at some point. I'm probably going to do an apartment tour, stuff like that. So definitely subscribe if you want to see more of that content, and like this video if you enjoyed it and if it was informative. And if you have any more questions, anything at all about DCP, about just me in general, feel free to comment below and I will comment back. Thank you so much, and good luck to all of you guys on your Disney College program experience.